A little bit cheeky, a little bit charming, and a whole lot of fun. Storybox Live. A whole lot of fun. Storybox Live. A whole lot of fun.
The stories in my family come from my grandfathers, my grandmother, my aunties, uncles, parents. And in Aboriginal culture, they are passed down to us as forms of knowledge. They can be about places, objects, animals, spirits. So they're very, very important.
Storytelling is about land and language and where you belong. Story for most of us is very important. It talks about our existence and why the reason we're here.
Story, I feel, is a really, really great way to express ideas and experiences, and definitely just provides a lot of inspiration for life.
You know, everything in the world and everything in your life has a story. Like everybody around you has a story, the leaves on the ground have a story. And it's kind of once you learn about the specific story to every individual or thing, you look at them differently and it changes your perspective on how you move forward in life as well.
I think stories are really important because they sometimes, take us to that other place, really grow our imagination and make us happy, can sometimes make us sad, teach us so many different things from many people's perspectives and different walks of life.
I think it's important for us to share stories because through storytelling and sharing, we get to know each other better. And we spend a lot of time talking about difference in society and how we're not like that person and we don't understand other people, rather than talking about what connects us as being the same. And I think when we start to share our life experiences, particularly as human beings, regardless of geography or cultural heritage or socioeconomics, that brings us together. And I think the world's a better place if we can start to know each other better, and stories are the best way to do that.
You know, books take us to all sorts of uncharted places. They allow us to unfurl into new ways of thinking and being. Yeah, they really are our incredible freedom machines.
And for me, like being surrounded by story, you sort of start to think about your own story.
When I was growing up, story time was really dinner time around the dining table. So it would start with someone talking about their day, and that would quite often lead to stories from history, across geography. It would lead to laughter, sometimes tears, quite often could lead to arguments, but it was all good. And my fondest memories are those stories shared over dinner time.
With the help of the grandfathers and uncles, they'd carry me around and they'd tell me stories, they'd whisper in my ear. I really thank them because it was their storytelling, their ways, our culture and all that sort of stuff that embedded me into who I'm supposed to be to this day.
I was pretty shy when I was growing up, and my mum was like, she was always saying, "Oh, you should read," and she took me and my brother to the library a lot, and has worked in a library for a long time and really introduced me to books, and that's in that way I sort of started to think, absorbing so many stories. I thought, there's that space for me to really think creatively and tell my own stories.
We, the elders, keep the younger generation connected to story by empowering them, by inspiring them, and to continue to be connected to their culture and heritage.
Hearing Dreamtime stories orally by my grandparents gave me more of an insight into their childhood and gave me more of an authentic experience on what Dreamtime stories really are.
Well, in a written story, the reader imagines tone and voice of characters and so forth. And in an oral story, obviously everything is provided to you. When you're reading a story, it's a very private experience between you and the page. In an oral story, whether you're watching it online or in person, there are two people there. There's always somebody else present. And to me, that's the vast difference. If you just want to escape with a story through a book and so forth, you can do that in your own space, particularly if it's a challenging story. Very different with an oral story, particularly if it's face-to-face. There is a form of interaction, and in a challenging story, that can be uncomfortable.
Well, growing up and having younger siblings and cousins, I thought, learning these stories and also just learning things about my day-to-day life, I think it was really important to tell stories and, pass on that knowledge that I have, learnt and grown from in my life.
I think I've always been a storyteller. When I was a child, I really enjoyed painting and drawing, and I would try and tell my stories that way. Sometimes I would write poems or little stories myself, particularly at school. And then the first story I wrote was at university. I'd written a book about a girl named Violet and her dog, which was actually based on me and my dog, which was a Doberman.
My role as a storyteller is important, because as an elder we need to continue what elders have done for us before, and that is to keep the stories going, to strengthen not only our people but the values, integrity of our culture and heritage.
I really see myself as a facilitator of other people's stories. So even in my novels, I'm telling stories that are for and about other people, my mob, my community and so forth. And I think as a storyteller, my role is to make sure that we have a voice in the national story overall, and that we appear on that national literary radar.